want you to focus on this moment right now. We often hear people talk about being in the moment. What does that really mean? Well, people mean they want you to focus on what's happening right now and not be distracted by, what might happen in the future or what happened in the past or whatever else. But does that really make sense? What is it really like to be in the moment now? Well, Hegel, in his Phenomenology of Spirit, has a really great analysis of that, especially in paragraphs 106 and 107. There he says that the thing about the moment now is that you only experience it in passing, right? So now is never a moment you can isolate and sit in. Right? Now is always something you experience, and as soon as you experience it, it's gone, and it's a new one. So think about what that means. You presumably recognize that if you try to hold on to the moment, you experience it passing away and you're in a new moment. But that means you experience now as kind of a movement from here to there, or rather I should say from now to then, right? If you notice that a moment has passed, then when you're noticing it, you're actually engaging with something that isn't now anymore. And so the fact that you experience the now only in passing shows you that your experience of the now is never isolated, but is always contextualized by a relation to past and future. But that's pretty interesting too, right? Because that means the very way you experience this moment is already opening up on something else that's going to happen and still carrying on something that was already going on, right? So this moment is never an isolated thing. It's always the way you're taking up the past and preparing for a future. So one of the things that shows is that this moment now is always complex or multiple, and it's always a kind of interpretation. What do I mean by saying it's multiple? Well, I mean that it's not just this now, but it's also that former now and the future now you're anticipating, all held together as one, right? The very meaning of the now is it is a taking up of that other thing or a preparing for that other thing. So even in the moment, you're always implicitly recognizing a kind of multiplicity to your experience. So what do I mean by saying it's an interpretation? Well, pretty much the same thing, right? It means the way you're experiencing this moment now is sort of saying, oh, this is what really came out of that. This is really what that was about. Or this is really how to set up for what's coming. But that way that you're making sense of the situation right now might change later, right? The part of what it means to say your experience is open to the future is that you might find out later, oh, what I thought was happening there was not what was happening there. And so this moment now is always the way that you're making sense of complexity of your experience. And that means it's always open to doubt, challenge, reinterpretation, and whatever else. And so if somebody asks you, what's happening now? Well, you might be wrong, right? You think this is happening now. But precisely what it means to say that this moment is open to the future is that in a future now, this now is going to be the past, and the sense you're going to make of it is, oh, it wasn't what I took it to be, it's something else. Right? That is the character of the now, and that is actually the form of all of our experience. Right? The very nature of our experience is that it is always that process of sort of taking up and making sense of what we already were in a way that is nonetheless open to a future in which that sense might be taken up and reinterpreted, challenged, and so on. So the now is the sense we're making, but it's never final. But so let's go back to that notion of being in the moment, right? What does it mean? Well, it doesn't mean that you can cut out an isolated little piece of time and live in it, right? Even when I said at the beginning, focus on this moment right now, we had to take the larger flow of experience and within that flowing, try to cut out this moment. In the same way in a band, someone says 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, so that everybody comes in on the same beat. But what that means is the only way they can have that moment is by isolating it from a larger flow. So the now never occurs by itself, but is always part of, you might say, the larger now, which is the now that's always happening. Now is when you're alive. So the sense of being in the moment can't be isolating a moment and shutting out everything else. What does it really mean? It really means precisely recognizing that in this moment, you are actually doing the work of moving your life forward from past to future. You're doing the work of making sense of what's been going on and who you are, right? So to really be in the moment is not to isolate the moment from time, but to really experience the full weight of the fact that you are the one who has to be living now and making sense of this, right? That's what it is to be in the moment.